If you're into laser engraving, especially machines like the xTool F series, you've probably started hearing people talk about something really intriguing lately, and that is UV printers. Now, I am aware at first glance that probably sounds like something that doesn't belong in the laser engraving makerspace, but with more information being released and the more I dig into it, I have started to realize just how useful this could be and how much this will integrate with the current workflow that we as laser engravers use. So most of us in the laser engraving world are used to engraving, cutting, that kind of thing. And a laser engraver ultimately works by removing material. However, UV printers work in the opposite way. They add material. So in a nutshell, without removing material, it actually adds a full range of color onto a surface, creating really vibrant and really unique designs that can be combined with other types of products. We're talking about materials like glass, like wood, leather, plastic, metal, the full range of materials. They are all susceptible, or mostly susceptible, to UV cured ink. So instead of removing the material, what we're actually doing is adding our really cool, vibrant designs on top of that material. And that alone opens the door to a completely different type of product. And that is always a good thing for makers like us. So why am I making this video today? Well, xTool recently announced that they are going to be making their own version of UV desktop printers into the market that is emerging as a brand new market. And that has got me really excited. And I am going to be receiving one of those machines. So I thought I need to start telling you guys what my thoughts are, interpreting the information, giving you some kind of idea of what is to come so you can help make your own decisions if you're going to get one or if you're not going to get one. And when I started actually looking into the information that's available out there, it made me realize this isn't just a standalone release of a new machine. This is the release of a machine that integrates with all of our existing F series lasers. And to me, that got me thinking, I need this in my life and I need to start learning about it. And as I was learning about it, I realized that you guys are probably really intrigued yourself. So I want to be the translator between the information xTool's releasing and what you understand as makers, so we can all realize together how this could actually benefit us moving forward. Now, just to be clear, I am not coming at this as a UV printer expert. As most of you know, most of the content on my channel is laser engraving, maker workflows, beginner tutorials, that kind of thing. However, I do have experience with UV printers, just on a more industrial scale, where I have designed and made labels for products and that kind of thing. But as mentioned, UV desktop printers are new territory for me. So this is a journey we are going to be going through together. And that's why I'm approaching this in exactly the same way that so many of you guys will also be doing. And that is to learn as much as I can right now. So in this video, I want to do some key things. Number one, what is this UV printer and what can it actually do? Two, how the technology actually works in simple terms. And most importantly, number three, how will this be important for makers and small businesses? Because once you actually start thinking about the combination of UV printing and laser engraving combined together, it gets really exciting and it opens up a whole world of products. This is also going to be the start of a journey for this channel, because I will actually be getting early access to the machine, compliments of xTool, which I'm really grateful for. And that puts me in a really unique position where I can learn, I can make the mistakes, and then I can start putting out content for you guys to help you hit the ground running if and when you decide to buy a UV printer. So in this video, I'm going to be running through the basics of what we know now, and then I'm going to be releasing subsequent videos going into that little bit of detail where we can dive into what we know, we can interpret the information, I can translate to you what I think it will be and what I think it will do to help benefit makers. And by the end of it, we're going to know loads and we're going to be ready. But before we get into any of that, let's start with the basics. What actually is UV printing and why are so many people getting excited about it? So one of the first things for us to understand is UV printing works very differently to your traditional printers. With a typical printer, usually it will lay down the ink and then that ink has to dry naturally via absorption or just evaporation into the air. UV printing is is different because as it lays down that layer of ink, it then cures the ink instantly in the same pass, which then dries it straight away with an ultraviolet light. So ultimately, the printer lays the ink, the ultraviolet light follows it, the wavelength of that light reacts with the chemicals, and instantly it is dried, which makes so many opportunities and instant access to your object, turning that liquid ink into a solid instantly. This instant curing is what makes UV printers so powerful. The ink doesn't need to soak into the material, it can sit directly on top of the surface, meaning you can print directly onto materials that traditional printers cannot even touch. Things like glass, metal, acrylic, leather, plastic, stone, all of those materials. What does that mean? That means instead of being limited to paper and card, you can basically print on top of anything. And this is where it starts to get really, really interesting for us makers. Because if you think about what we're already doing, we're making shapes, we're making designs, we're making physical objects, and UV printing adds another layer to that. So instead of engraving and cutting something and having your finished wooden product, guess what you can do now? You can find a really cool, unique, colorful design or a textured design, and you can now seamlessly, based on what we've seen so far in the documentation, put it into your UV printer and produce a great design on top of something you created with the lasers. So suddenly products that used to be simple engraved pieces can now become a fully finished product, and that is exciting. Now, UV printers themselves, they are not brand new products. In terms of commercial and industrial, they've been around for a long time. But the problem is, as is with most industrial things, traditional UV printers, they're either really big, they're really expensive, or they're really complex and need a full setup just to run them. And this is where the xTool UV desktop UV printer becomes such an exciting prospect. And what xTool are doing right here with this desktop version is they are making it accessible to makers and small businesses. And that is what is truly groundbreaking about this. And as someone who has existing xTool products, one of the things I do love about xTool is how innovative they are. They don't just take a product, put their badge on it and put it out there. They put the effort in to design it, to optimize it, to make it user-friendly and to make it practical. And this is what excites me. And that's why we're going to move on. And once you start looking into the technology they've designed into this, the information they've currently released that we have access to, it gets exciting because you see what they are trying to make possible for us. One of the headlining features that xTool has released to us so far is the dual printhead system. This is actually quite an important feature when it comes to UV printers, and I'm going to tell you why. Most traditional and existing desktop UV printers have single printheads, and the job of that printhead is to apply all of the inks in the various different combinations. With a single printhead setup, the printhead has to lay individual layers of different colors one at a time, which can be a bit more time consuming. So let me give you a good example of that. If you're printing directly onto a dark surface, you ultimately need to apply a white backing first so that you can put your colorful design on top of it to give it the correct contrast and tone. So the printer lays that first backing white layer down, which it has to go back and forth and do, and then following that, that's when it has to then get the CMYK, the different colors that is, and then go over the top of that. And then if you want a gloss or a textured finish, that is then an additional pass on top of the colors. So that is potentially 3 separate passes of the same path on your object. But what the xTool UV printer with its dual heads is doing is it's splitting that workflow between 2 print heads instead of 1. So you have one print head which covers all of the colors, and then you have a second print head which covers the white, the gloss, or the matte finish. And the benefit here is because both heads are moving at the same time, it can apply color, white, and gloss on the same pass, which is drastically going to reduce that print time. And that to me is really important as a maker, as a small business. And as I said earlier, that becomes particularly effective when you're printing onto dark surfaces, because instead of having to wait for those white layers to go down first before you can even apply your color, you are literally applying your white base and then applying your color in those same sweeping passes, which drastically reduces the time. So the printhead is only part of the story that we know so far. The other bit of information we have been released great. And this one in particular stood out to me is the size and the flexibility of the workspace, because this is a large workspace and it isn't just designed for flat sheets and small objects. xTool have tried to make this practical and as beneficial to us as possible by giving us a maximum working area so that we can actually print onto proper sized objects. And that is where things start to get really, really interesting. So the xTool UV printer uses an A3 sized workspace, and that equates to roughly 330 by 420 millimeters, which for my American audience equates to about 11.7 inches by 16.5 inches. Now that might not sound massive at first thought, but if you think about in terms of bed size, it is absolutely huge, especially in the desktop UV printer space. And what it means in practice is you can either print big items in one go, or if you've got bigger items, you can do it in multiple passes and line it up in a batch workflow. So there we were talking about the X and the Y dimensions, but there is one more string to the size bow, and that is the Z dimension, the height. So the machine has approximately 150 millimeters of Z clearance, and that equates to approximately 5.9 inches for my American friends once again. And the benefit of that is it's not just limited to thin, flat objects anymore. You can take your larger, thicker objects, place them in there, and then print directly on top of them. And that is something really unique and something I'm personally very glad they have implemented. Things like wooden boxes, finished assembled items, thick acrylic. There's so many possibilities that you can do with it. And this is where the UV printer starts to feel very different from traditional printers, because instead of printing on a blank canvas, we are actually able to print directly onto finished items. So you have things like tumblers, you have things like plaques, you have things like trophies or key rings or pens. There's so many things that you could theoretically take, put into the machine, and they are finished items you can buy off the shelf in bulk, and then you can put your own branding in there, be it corporate, personal, gifts, lovely messages, and that's something that's really unique and really powerful. And yes, I did mention tumblers because this machine comes with a rotary attachment. xTool released it the other day and showed us. So we can print onto cylindrical items, mugs, cups, tumblers, you name it, flasks. There's so much opportunity with it. And for those of you who already have laser engravers with the rotary attachments, you know just how versatile that can be and how much that gives you. Now, beyond the core printer itself, xTool have also designed a full suite of accessories. And these accessories are what expand the capabilities even further from the base unit. It allows you to deal with different shapes, different workflows, different products, different sizes, and that's something that is a really good thing, and I'm so glad to see it because I am an accessories person. So as I said, alongside the printer itself, xTool are releasing a full suite of accessories. So these include different flatbed sizes to handle different sized objects, rotary attachment for the cylindrical items that we spoke about earlier, a roll-to-roll feeder for the flexible materials, and even a laminator attachment. And each of these in their rightful selves involves a whole new workflow that allows you to get the versatility out of the single machine. One particularly interesting workflow that I am totally new to but excited to see is UV to DTF. So this allows you to take a design, put it onto a transfer sheet, then laminate it, and then you can take that laminated sheet, if it's too big for the printer, the product you want to put it on, you can go outside of the actual UV printer and put it on something much larger, and that is really cool. That excites me. So instead of making a design in the machine on an object inside of the machine, you're effectively creating your own decals, taking them out, and then you can apply them onto things like helmets, onto cars wraps. You know, there's so much potential there. But the feature that has definitely caught my attention the most is how this printer is going to integrate with our current workflow and our current products, our laser engravers. So the idea is you could create a design in xTool Studio. That design goes on a material that is untreated, uncut. You could then feed that into the laser engravers, which in theory should have a way of knowing where they need to orientate and knowing where they need to cut. You can then cut that design that you've already put into the printer, and you have a great unique product. And I'm sure it will work the opposite way around as well. You could probably laser engrave your shape, cut it out, and then take that design into the UV printer and also put directly onto that as well. And I love the fact that xTool are gonna design, and I don't know how it's gonna work yet, they haven't shown us, but there will be markers or some kind of crop marks that will allow both types of machines to effectively recognize where they are and what they need to do. And as as I said earlier, this is where things get very interesting for small businesses and makers just like us, because combining UV printing with laser engraving really creates complex, complete picture, which takes your simple designs, which are still great designs, they're still very, very commercial, but it adds that polished finish and makes it look like a really professional finished design. And that, in my opinion, is where the workflow suddenly becomes so valuable, and why having all of it integrated into xTool Studio will be so beneficial to all of us that already use it. From my own personal perspective and my own development perspective, the whole thing really excites me, because I love the idea of combining different hobbies. You all know I'm big into 3D printing, okay? I'm big into laser engraving. I love it when I can get those two niches together. Well, there's going to be a third one that's going to be added to those two niches, and it's going to add so many capabilities, because I do make jigs, I do make products, and now I can put custom designs on top of them, which just absolutely blows my mind and really excites me. Now, like I mentioned to you guys earlier, this is just the first video, okay? I'm giving you a good overall understanding of what has been released, what we currently know, and what we hope for. But this is just a starting point, okay? And over the coming weeks, I will be getting access to this machine early at some point. So we'll be able to test it, we'll be able to see what it's capable of, we'll be able to get hands-on experience with the accessories, and through me, you guys can see what it can do for you. And that is what I'm really trying to get out of this. That's why when xTool came to me and they approached me and asked me about doing this, I bit their arms off. Not because I wanted to be a mouthpiece for xTool, because you guys know me well enough now. That is not who I am. I am someone who gives to the community as much as I can, and I saw this as an opportunity to give back to you guys and to hopefully influence you in a positive or a negative way. We will show both sides of the story and give you an idea and a complete picture, so you can make an informed, educated decision for yourself and for your best situation. So if you're a laser engraver, if you're into UV printing, if you're a newbie who just wants to see what this is all about, follow this channel, subscribe to this channel, give the video a like, because I am going to give you everything in this, okay? I am going to put all of my knowledge, all of my experience, I'm going to make the mistakes for you guys, and then I'm going to put it back out and give you the best packaged information and instructions I can possibly do. So I hope that is going to help you all hit the ground running if and when you get the machine yourself. And I'm not trying to deceive you guys. I am no expert, but what I am is someone who is willing to learn. I would love to know in the comments if you have previous experience with UV printers. Let me know what you think. Let me know about the features. Tell me if you're excited. Tell me if you can see room for improvement, or if you have any concerns, anything. I am just ready for this conversation, so engage with me below. And xTool have actually set up their own Facebook group, a creator group, where you can have an influence in the machine as it's in its final development stages. So feel free to join that. I will include a link. I've also got my own Facebook group, which I'm trying to build a community in advance. So please join that if you want to be involved in the conversation, if you want to get access to me to hear my thoughts, all these other things, as well as our own material settings for our laser engravers and a really welcoming, helpful community, then find that group in that description and join that as well. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me talking about this. As you can see, I am an excited person. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. So have a great day, guys. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and thank you once again for watching.